My talk is going to go beyond just the green economy, because in fact, there is no possibility of having the green economy without actually turning the digital economy into a green economy and turning them both into a fair and global golden age, which I will argue. And that is because in order to construct the future, it's very useful to have a good knowledge and understanding of the past. So what I will do today is to explain why we can be hopeful of a global golden age, but also why we should understand that it doesn't happen automatically, that it's a big task to bring it about, and it will be green, and it will be fair, and it will be smart in the sense of digital, but most likely it will have to be global in a special sense, and we hope it'll be a golden age. So with my studies of technological revolutions in the past, I can bring you an understanding and some hope for a better future. So the first thing is to understand that the future is not the continuation of the recent past, nor is it determined by technology. There are lots of technological determinists around who think that because artificial intelligence can do this or that, that's going to happen. No, we decide, we shape it, we design the future. It is not an automatic thing that if a technology can do something, it'll happen. We give direction to technology. And in order to understand that, history is probably the best source of criteria to guide us in the process. So I'll talk about the 5 technological revolutions and 4 golden ages that we have seen, the social shaping of technologies. I'll ask what is the nature of golden ages, and finally, why would we have smart, fair, and green together? So there have been 5 technological revolutions in the past 240 years. The first one was the Industrial Revolution with machines, factories, and canals. Every revolution has a particular infrastructure. Canals was the infrastructure of the first revolution because the infrastructures are transport infrastructures mainly, and they widen the space, they widen the market, so they allow for a big wave of growth and wealth creation based on the new technologies. The next one was the age of steam, coal, iron, and railways being the internet of the time. Then we have the age of steel and heavy engineering, electrical, chemical, civil, naval. At that time, we had 3 infrastructures: steamships, transoceanic telegraph, and transcontinental railways. Then 1908, the age of the automobile, oil, plastics, and mass production, where the infrastructures that opened the markets were roads, the road network, the highway network, airports, etc. And of course, radio and television and so on for communication. And our own age of information technology and telecommunications, where the internet is the infrastructure. And we have only halfway, even though it has been so many years since the microprocessor, I hold that we are only halfway along and that we still have the second half, which is going to be hopefully a golden age. So each of these revolutions brings a techno-economic and socio-institutional shift. So it's not just the technologies that change, it's the whole institutional structure. The state has to change, the policies, the welfare state, the conditions for the taxes, innovation and investment are led by this new framework that happens after. I will explain in a minute. So, but what happens is that the first half is one of growing inequality, creative destruction, as Schumpeter called it, and the second half is when we get the golden ages. The historical record reveals the sequence of bubbles and golden ages. So we have bubble prosperity with increasing inequality and a golden age prosperity with win-win game on the other side. But in between, there is a post-bubble recession, political unrest, populism, the things that we are seeing now. They are, and we are just sort of, hopefully, at the end of this middle period and just before we can set up a golden age. So after the canal mania and the short recession, there was the Great British Leap. Then the railway mania was followed by the Victorian boom. The many global booms in Australia, Argentina, etc., and the US, the Gilded Age, were followed by the Belle Epoque and the Progressive Era. The Roaring Twenties were followed 40 years later by the post-war Golden Age. The dot-com boom and global casino that we have just had could lead to a sustainable global ICT Golden Age. That's the question. The Golden Ages depend on government policy providing direction, and the post-pandemic reconstruction opens an opportunity similar to that after World War II. That's why I think we might just be here. So how about the social shaping of technologies? Well, as I said before, technology does not determine the future. All it does is to set the stage and provide the tools. So the shaping to bring about the golden age is socio-political. It is not just about the economy. It's about the institutional framework. So the outcome depends on social pressure, obviously. So civil society, political movements, business, and thought leaders play a defining role in the outcome. What did we get with the mass production golden age? Employment, education, health, and security based on home ownership and mass consumption. But we destroyed the environment and excluded the developing world. What could we get with the digital and green golden age? All of that, but smart and green, plus meaning, creativity, social networks, lifelong learning, based on collaboration, access, rental, maintenance, recycling, and reuse, a more ethical capitalism, with an improving global society flourishing on a healthy planet. Lovely dreams, perfectly viable. Will they happen? This time, the transition is very deep. From energy intensity to information intensity in production and consumption, from consumerism and waste to conservation, reuse, and recycle, from resource-intensive products to knowledge-intensive services, from possession to access, from maximum to optimum mobility, from mostly national to increasingly local, supranational, and global governance, from home-centered to network-centered, from aiming at passive comfort to aiming at active satisfaction, etc., etc., etc. You can continue that list. Many institutional innovations will be required to facilitate that transition. Now, what is the nature of golden ages? Well, the three periods are distinctly different. The installation is a gilded age. You know that gilded is just any base metal, but it has a nice thin cover of gold, so it shines. Well, the installation was all about financial capital and control, deregulation, unfettered markets, creative destruction, new technologies, industries, and products versus obsolete technologies, industries, and products. Easy millionaires, which end up in job losses, skills destruction, widening inequality, regional disparities, and so on. So it is a very turbulent time. How about the turning, which is where we are now? I have called it the turning point, but sometimes it lasts much longer than a point. So the post-bubble recessions, risk-averse finance, precisely because of the hits they get with the bubble collapses. But of course, if you do quantitative easing, they start trusting that they'll always be safe, and therefore they're okay. Low investment, nevertheless. It's basically the techies that use their money, which they don't pay in taxes, they use it for investment. We therefore have relatively feeble growth, lots of money being earned in the financial sector, but not so much, not so obvious that we have proper growth across countries and the world. Social unrest, inequality, hopelessness, and therefore xenophobia. You hate the migrants, you hate the Mexicans or the Jews or the Muslims or whoever is around that wasn't there before, not us. Populism, of course, the messianic leaders offer heaven, and because people are angry, rightly, because they have lost their future, they have lost their hope, then you get these people giving the idea that they can solve the problems, which they can't. Structural unemployment, economic migrations, talk of secular stagnation, and so on. So what about the golden ages, the deployment of the whole potential? Well, it's a time for a proactive state with social consensus, production capital in control rather than finance, and finance has to innovate a lot in order to, it has to be a real service in order to make money. Creative construction, clear policy direction, dynamic markets, stable regulation, productivity increases across the board from the spread of new technology across all industries, social security measures, reduction of inequality, social stability, progressive taxation, and so on. They are very different, and golden ages are the times when capitalism regains legitimacy by sharing the fruits of wealth creation. That is precisely what has made capitalism legitimate. And the nature of the turning point serves as the alarm bell for government action. So that's where we are. The defining feature of golden ages is the shift from high inequality to a fairer society. If we look at the USA from 1913, which means the beginning of the mass production revolution, to 1918, which is midway along the information revolution, we find that the percent of declared income earned by the top 1% of taxpayers, including capital gains, this is the data from Piketty and Size, of course, went as far as 25%, as high as 25% of incomes in the roaring 20s, and now from the 90s and the 2000s and so on. But then in the post-war boom, in the golden age of mass production, it goes down to 10. And that is exactly the phenomenon of going from installation to to golden ages, to deployment. So will we stay up there? Because that's what we did after 2008. Quantitative easing, save finance, don't save the people. So maybe we can do this. It is perfectly viable. It needs to be socially and politically decided. So would the post-COVID boom lead to a green golden age of information? It could, it should. And business counts on dynamic demand from prosperous consumers when we have golden ages. So it's good for business too. It's a positive sum game, actually. Will we do it again? It is precisely from revolution to revolution and from golden age to golden age that social progress occurs in capitalism. It's like a ratchet. It goes back and destroys jobs and things, creative destruction in the installation period. Then you come to the reckoning when you have the recession and you realize all the harm. You know, that's what COVID allowed us to see, all the 0 hours contracts and the gig economy and all these things that make insecurity for people. And of course, that's when we get the populists. We get the Trumps and the Brexits and all these things that actually make people, you know, it proves that people are angry and they are right to be angry. So, but then we get the leap, we get the progress. So golden ages are essentially a positive sum game between business and society orchestrated by government. and that each productivity leap, a new layer of society is brought to the good life, while some are left behind. That's how we came from the satanic mills all the way to workers owning a house and a car at the door and electrical appliances and the children going to university. So, but the distinctive feature of golden ages is directionality. It's precisely that the economy goes in clear directions. It is a tilting of the playing field so that all policies, taxes, subsidies, regulation, etc., point in the same directions and create dynamic demand. And that's why institutions have to change, because the direction has to be different. The old directions, the old technologies, the old ways of being, the old good life is gone. We need a new good life, a new direction for businesses, new innovation, and we have the technologies with which to do it. So, sorry. And that each productivity leap, I said that. So it is a tilting of the playing field so that all policies, I said that already, I'm sorry, I got confused. This induces innovation and investment towards increasing synergy with increasing productivity and stable profitability. Now, why smart, fair, and green together? What is it that makes us think that it should be that? Well, the first thing is that direction never comes out of a hat like a rabbit. It's about intensifying existing trends, solving major existing problems, and taking best advantage of the installed technologies. All this simultaneously. After the Second World War, Reconstruction, unemployment, the end of military demand, and the Soviet threat led to social democratic policies to guide the existing mass production potential towards suburbanization, which meant mass consumption, and Cold War production, which meant high-tech, really high-tech development, among them, of course, internet, computers, and microprocessors, and all those things, and travel to space. Today, the conditions for a strong directionality are clear. We are at the confluence of three critical moments. The turning point of the ICT revolution, which I just explained, which is a time for social sustainability. The climate threat with the urgency of environmental sustainability, and the post-pandemic reconstruction, which provided or which created consensus on public action. It was so clear that the government had to do something. It was so clear that we were all in this together, and if the climate were to bring anything similar, even mildly similar to the pandemic, but permanent, we'd be in real trouble. So we have understood that the state has to come back, forget about all this austerity, all this worrying mainly about the debt and not mainly about investment and wealth creation. So that's where we are. And the stage is then set for synergistic, smart, green, fair, and global growth. It is up to governments to proactively establish the conditions, but it's up to us to pressure governments into that. If business understands the critical moment without myopic short-term interests, we can set up a positive sum game between business and society, between advanced, emerging, and developing countries, and between humanity and the planet. And guess what that would be? The golden age of the global knowledge society. Thank you.